Hello Scotland Tang So I had a great question off Sabanim Carl in the week, and I really appreciate that question, and I wanted to answer it by video because it's far easier than me writing it all down. And then I also thought I could share it with you. But just before I do that, I'm not in De-Vry right now because I happen to be in the centre of Stuttgart, which I think is a very beautiful city, and I just wanted to show you the park that I'm filming from. You can see a very beautiful park. It's at the back of the Schlotzplatz. You can see in the background of the video theatre. The rest of the park. A place I enjoy very much. Maybe one day, if you ever get to visit me here, you will see this beautiful city that I live in now. So the question that Carl asked was, what is my interpretation of the first three moves of Pianan Idan? And I love this question. But before I go into my interpretation of the answer of it, I want to share with you the background of why I came out with that particular answer. So I'm about halfway through drafting my first book regarding Tang. It was a difficult subject to think of because many books have already been written by many masters and grandmasters, so how do I do better than that? And my thinking was, how can I improve our training? And back in the day when I was coloured belt learning, one of the difficulties I had was my brain. We would learn the Hyungs and then we would learn the one steps, and the two were not related. So I had to use my brain power to try and remember both, and then also, as I said, they're not related. And later on, as a black belt, and some of you were part of this, we had many discussions about the one steps and their relevance. And I and a few of us, we fell in and out of love with the one steps. But I think I'm back in love with them again because I think I found a purpose to them. And my book is around looking at the Hyungs we do and trying to extrapolate from those Hyungs the movement and turn them into a one step. So in doing that, it may not be pure to the original Hyung of 2,000 years ago, but it's my modern interpretation on what I think they would have thought they were and what I think their application is today. So a little bit long-winded, but I'm writing this book based upon principles, and those principles are that basic forms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., you know, the coloured belt ones, they're basic, they're for beginners, and the one steps from them should also be simple. They should also be the most natural movement of the body. We shouldn't be undoing natural aspects of self-defense that we had before we joined the Tang, and we certainly shouldn't be trying to extrapolate complicated self-defense from it when it is just a basic drill. Now, Sabanim Carl, again military, this helps me, we all learn drills in our basic training, in our trade training, and throughout our life we reinforce those drills through our annual performance training, and they are drills. And what happens is I do apologise, people resort to their basic drills when under pressure and stress. So the other principle behind the one steps that I'm creating is they are the most likely scenario that a student is going to encounter in a self-defense or self-protection situation if they're unlucky enough to find themselves in that. And for the most of us, the attack, if you find yourself in that position, is going to come from an assailant using their upper body and their arms and hands. It's not going to be some fantastic spinning round kick to the head or a chair in a bar like we see in some of these self-defenses. It's going to be a grab or a punch or a movement in this direction towards you. So the drills that you're learning as a white belt should be an extension of what you already knew about stopping things hitting you. You know, you did this before you came to class. Ow, that hurts. So you learnt this. What we shouldn't do is undo these things with complications in the drills. The other principle I'm working on is that in the form, the final movement is just where the form finishes because there is no opponent and we're moving through thin air, and we need to have a finish and start point to the form or else it would just look a mess. So just like a soldier will learn to march, which is just an extension of walking, the martial artist at the beginning stage is just learning to block like they already know, but smarter, followed up by another movement. I will have discussed with you in earlier days basic form 1, which is just a turn to the left followed by a punch. And all I'm saying here is this movement here is the very first movement. It's the hand closest to where the danger is coming at you, and you're swatting or blocking the movement. Done. You do this already. If anything comes to your face, you do this with your hand. So we smarten it up with a harder slapping block followed by a strike. So moving on to Sabanim Carl's question of Pyongan Idan, the first movement being 2 hands going up like this, followed by an uppercut style movement, followed by a side style punch. Now, I've seen many interpretations of this. On the left hand side, some of them are completely unfeasible. In the middle, some are feasible, and then some on the right are very good techniques. I've seen versions where an instructor has explained to me, and I have no problem with this because this is what I was taught and learned, and it got me to where I was today, that it's blocking a chair coming to your head, or it's blocking a punch from one person or an axe kick from another person. A lot of people try to describe the forms as something quite fanciful in its finished position. I try to be a bit more practical on that. And so I hope all that preamble towards what I'm going to show you hasn't dampened what I think this movement is. Clearly in the book it goes into a little bit more explanation of the vital points that you're trying to hit. But let's get down to answering Sabanim Carl's question before I go on with more principles and more chat about my book and what's behind the forms. So Pyongan Idan, quite simply 2 hands going up like this, followed by this kind of movement, followed by that kind of movement. Obviously with stance, which I'm not showing you in the park because I'll probably get thrown out of the park for weird behaviour. But let's think about it. A likely scenario, building on the fact that this is still a student in their first year of training, building upon their drills that they've already learned, let's look at it from a one-step perspective. One step is just a punch coming forward. But the punches can be more sophisticated. They could be hooking, they could be uppercutting, etc. So for this one, if I stand sideways on for the first move is this way, if we imagine a hooking punch coming in here, or even a straight punch coming in here, so you're developing it as a one-step for your students, then this movement here is simply a blocking mechanism against that hooking punch. There. And because people are at different heights and sizes, and the punch can come in from different angles and heights, the arm can block that punch at any part of the rise and fall of the movement. So if there's nobody there and you're doing a form, it simply ends up and stops here, just like a low block stops here. So we have this movement, 2 hands. So imagine the hooking punch coming in this way, and I want to block it there. There's me blocking the punch. Sorry, I have no opponent, so hopefully your imagination can work out what I'm doing. And if I'm doing my job right, remember I've practiced this thousands of times, you should see my opponent. So in comes my opponent, I block and I strike them at the same time. So the opponent's there, in my face, block and strike. That's the first movement. You'll also see that we have trapping movements where the arm rotates and you can try and break the arm here. So imagine the hooking punch coming towards me, I block the arm and I strike the person at the same time, maybe in an uppercut or to the solar plexus to win them, or a slight back fist there, but the essence of the movement is block and strike. Boom! There's the person incapacitated. I'm going to break their arm or restrain them. There's the circular motion of the arm round there, and I trap it. This is out of the old one-steps. You should have seen this as a self-defense before. But because we want the form to flow, 1, 2, 3, we're going to block, trap the arm or break it, depends where you fall on the elbow, depends how long their arm is. Bang, and then we're just going to finish the person off with a hammer fist or punch. I recommend the hammer fist to the jawline, bang. So imagine hooking punch coming towards my face, block, strike, break the arm, knock them out. And that is it. And if you think about the level of student you're teaching, that's about the right level of basic drill against the right kind of attack, which would be this kind of attack coming towards them. You know, think about the most common attack a person might get involved in, at the level they're involved in. Keep it simple, block and strike, pressure points all down here. You've all received dead arms before. you get hit in the chin, they're going to be stunned. Time to trap the arm under the elbow, break the elbow, knock the person out. Hopefully, Carl, I've managed to explain my interpretation of the first 3 moves of Pianan Idan. Other moves I've seen, somebody grabs you in a bear hug and you lift your way out of it and do this. It actually works, but there's no explanation to how this works after. And there's other versions of that I've read thousands of books, watched thousands of videos on. And if you look at the principle of yin and yang, the principle of pressure point application, the basics of the human anatomy, for me, block and strike, break an arm, take the chin. I think that's the most reasonable explanation. And if you teach that as a 1-step, along with that form, you help the student not only learn the 1-step, you help them learn the form, and the 2 are related. I hope that helps. I appreciate any feedback on that explanation. If you have any more questions on anything to do with Tang Soo Do and martial arts, feel free to ask and I will enjoy answering. And in particular, if you're interested in how you break down your forms to teaching your students something credible about those forms, do feel free to ask. I promise you I won't answer with Ili Kwan Soo 2-finger strike to the eye, but the person happens to block it like this, so then you follow up with a back fist. There will be none of that in my explanations. That's all I've got for now. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Tang Soo.